Part 2, Initial Invasions of Frostreach. The Empire of Frostreach decides to invade and attempt to conquer the state of Vermont. Emperor Maximilian dispatches a vast army of imperial soldiers, Cryocan warriors, and elite shock troopers to Vermont, under the command of his most trusted general, Sir Frostbeard. The army marches through the snowy woods and across frozen lakes, their boots crunching the icy ground as they advance towards the state capital. The Cryocan, ever at home in the cold, scout ahead of the main force, using their ice-based abilities to create hidden paths and set ambushes for the unsuspecting enemy. Meanwhile, the people of Vermont, aware of the impending invasion, prepare for a fierce resistance. They form militias and barricade the roads, determined to defend their homeland at all costs. News of the Empire's advanced technology and overwhelming military might only serves to steel their resolve, as they remember the stories of their ancestors who fought off British invasions during the American Revolution. The Imperial Army reaches the outskirts of the state capital, a picturesque city nestled among the Green Mountains. Sir Frostbeard orders a feint attack to draw out the Vermont militia, while the main force circles around to attack from the rear. The Cryocan, perched atop ice towers, use their frigid breath to create clouds of fog that obscure the enemy's vision, aiding in the confusion. As the battle rages on, the city's residents hunkered down in their homes, lighting bonfires in their fireplaces to ward off the cold and the imperial forces alike. The Vermont militia, under the command of General Putnam, launches a series of counterattacks against the Imperial Army. They employ guerrilla tactics, striking swiftly and disappearing into the snow-covered woods before the enemy can respond. The Cryocan, with their keen senses and ability to move effortlessly over snow and ice, prove invaluable in tracking down the elusive Vermonters. Despite their best efforts, the Empire's superior numbers and technology eventually begin to take their toll. As the battle reaches a critical juncture, Emperor Maximilian decides to intervene personally. He rides forth at the head of an elite force of shock troopers, his mighty ice sword gleaming in the moonlight. The sight of their fearless leader inspires the imperial forces to redouble their efforts, and they push forward with renewed vigor. Sir Frostbeard, meanwhile, has managed to flank the Vermont militia, trapping them between two groups of his soldiers. The Cryocan, using their ice powers to create a slipstream, create a path of sheer ice through the river that flows through the city, allowing the imperial forces to cross and cut off General Putnam's retreat. Cornered and outnumbered, the Vermont militia puts up one last desperate stand, but they are no match for the might of the Empire. Emperor Maximilian and his shock troopers engage in a fierce duel with General Putnam, their blades clashing and sparks flying as they trade blows. Despite the valiant efforts of the Vermont general, he is eventually overwhelmed by the sheer skill and determination of the Emperor. As General Putnam falls, the remaining resistance crumbles, and the city surrenders. Sir Frostbeard, seeing the battle won, orders his troops to halt their pursuit of the fleeing militiamen. He turns his attention to the city's citizens, many of whom have taken shelter in their homes. The Cryocan, still atop their ice towers, survey the city, their gazes cold and impassive. The imperial soldiers, on the other hand, seem to revel in the victory, their faces flushed with excitement and adrenaline. Emperor Maximilian, surveying the scene from atop a snow-covered hill, addresses his troops. "Today, my loyal subjects, we have added another jewel to our empire. But let us not forget the sacrifice made by our brave soldiers, and the courage shown by our foes. As we begin the process of rebuilding and restoring order, let us also remember the lessons learned here. Vermont will forever be a part of our great nation, and it is our duty to ensure that their culture and traditions are preserved." The Empire of Sunhaven decides to attempt to research magical portal teleportation. Emperor Travis and Lord Alaric, now allies and friends, set aside their differences and begin to pool their resources. They gather the greatest minds from both their kingdoms to work on this ambitious project, creating a magical portal that can transport people and objects across vast distances in the blink of an eye. They draw upon ancient texts and artifacts, studying the secrets of magic and portal technology left behind by the long-vanished civilization that once worshipped the god entity. They also tap into the knowledge of the mutants, who have an innate understanding of the arcane energies that power portals. As the years pass, progress is slow but steady. They build a massive research facility hidden deep within the heart of the Empire, far from prying eyes. Here, they experiment with different methods of harnessing magic and creating stable portal technology. They succeed in creating smaller, localized portals that can transport objects and people over relatively short distances, but they still have yet to master the technology needed for long-range travel. One day, a young researcher named Alicia stumbles upon an ancient scroll that seems to hold the key to their problems. She spends months translating the ancient text and deciphering its complex magical diagrams. When she finally presents her findings to the two leaders, they are astounded by her discovery. The scroll contains the blueprints for a massive magical device, capable of creating a portal large enough to transport entire armies and fleets of ships. Excited by this breakthrough, Travis and Alaric gathered their most skilled engineers and mages to begin construction of the portal generator. The project takes several years to complete, as they must carefully craft the massive crystals and align them within the intricate network of magical runes etched into the stone. Finally, the day arrives when they are ready to activate the portal generator. With a roar of primal magic, the generator comes online, and a shimmering portal appears in the center of the chamber. The two leaders, filled with a mix of awe, fear, and determination, step forward to test the device. They nod to one another, taking a deep breath before stepping through the portal. As they emerge on the other side, they find themselves in the heart of the ruins where the ancient god entity once dwelt. The portal generator has successfully transported them across the continent, to the very location where the threat of sapientia first arose. The state of South Carolina alone is struck by a disastrous solar flare. The Empire, still reeling from the aftermath of the attack on Vermont, scrambles to respond to the crisis in South Carolina. Sir Frostbeard and his Ice Legion, along with the Cryoken, are immediately dispatched to aid in the recovery efforts. Emperor Maximilian, however, remains in Vermont to oversee the integration of the newly conquered state into the Empire. In South Carolina, the initial impact of the solar flare is devastating. Power grids collapse, communications are disrupted, and vital infrastructure is crippled. The people of the state are left to fend for themselves in the face of widespread chaos and panic. Sir Frostbeard and his forces arrive within days, bringing with them supplies, medical aid, and a sense of order. The Cryoken, with their unparalleled senses and control over ice, work tirelessly to repair damaged infrastructure and restore power to critical facilities. The recovery effort is hampered by looting and lawlessness, but Sir Frostbeard's Ice Legion quickly restores order. They establish checkpoints and patrols, ensuring that aid and supplies are distributed fairly and efficiently. The Cryoken, meanwhile, continue to work behind the scenes, using their abilities to rebuild and repair the state's damaged systems. Weeks pass, and the initial crisis begins to subside. The people of South Carolina, grateful for the Empire's aid, begin to see the benefits of being part of such a powerful and benevolent nation. Emperor Maximilian, satisfied with the progress made by Sir Frostbeard and his forces, decides it is time to personally visit the state. He arrives in the capital city, accompanied by his retinue of advisors and courtiers. The effects of the solar flare are immediate and catastrophic. Power grids fail, communications are cut off, and the skies erupt in a blaze of light as electromagnetic pulses overwhelm electronic systems. Panic grips the populace as they struggle to comprehend the scale of the disaster. In the chaos, rival factions emerge, each vying for control over the dwindling resources and the fragmented government. Emperor Travis and Lord Alaric, still recovering from their journey through the portal, are alerted to the situation. They quickly rally their forces and begin the long march back to their homelands, hoping to restore order and stability. Along the way, they encounter resistance from various warlords and mercenary bands who have taken advantage of the crisis to seize power. Travis and Alaric must use all their cunning and military might to subdue these threats and re-establish their authority. In the empire of Sun-Heaven, Grand Vizier Ammon steps up to fill the power vacuum left by the emperor's absence. He declares himself the rightful ruler and begins to consolidate his control over the kingdom. However, he is not the only one with ambitions. A mysterious figure known only as the Shadow emerges from the shadows, gathering a secret army of mutants and other outcasts. They begin a campaign of sabotage and guerrilla warfare against Ammon's forces, striking from the shadows and then fading back into the night. Meanwhile, in the Southlands, Lord Alaric's forces encounter stiff resistance from a warlord named Thorn, who has built a formidable fortress and controls the trade routes through the region. Alaric recognizes that he cannot simply brute force his way through and decides to employ a more cunning strategy. He offers Thorn a deal. If he surrenders peacefully, he will be granted a lordship over the region and allowed to continue his trade unmolested. Thorn, seeing the futility of resistance and the opportunity for profit, agrees. In the empire of Sun-Heaven, Grand Vizier Ammon grows increasingly paranoid about the Shadow's activities. He begins to suspect that someone close to him might be aiding the guerrillas. To root out any potential traitors, he instigates a series of brutal purges, executing anyone who shows even the slightest sign of disloyalty. This only serves to further alienate him from his subjects and strengthen the Shadow's cause. Meanwhile, Lord Alaric establishes a peaceful trade agreement with Thorn, allowing him to continue his trade unmolested. Thorn, true to his word, remains loyal to Alaric and aids him in his campaign against other warlords in the region. As they work together, they form a strong bond of respect and trust. In the empire of Sun-Heaven, Grand Vizier Ammon's reign of terror continues as he tightens his grip on power. The Shadow's guerrilla tactics grow bolder, striking at key targets and sowing chaos throughout the land. Ammon becomes increasingly paranoid and unstable, convinced that everyone around him is a spy or a traitor. His decisions become erratic, and he begins to lose the support of his people and his generals. Emperor Travis, finally returning to South Carolina, finds the state in disarray and must navigate the political landscape to reunite the fractured nation and restore order. In the empire of Sun-Heaven, Grand Vizier Ammon's reign of terror reaches its climax as his paranoia drives him to commit increasingly reckless actions. The Shadow, emboldened by Ammon's unraveling, launches a series of daring attacks on the capital, striking at the heart of the vizier's power. As the empire teeters on the brink of collapse, a faction of nobles and generals, tired of Ammon's rule, conspire to depose him and restore stability to the land. Meanwhile, Lord Alaric and Emperor Travis continue their campaigns to bring order to their respective territories. Alaric's diplomatic efforts with Thorn pay off, as they successfully unite the Southlands under a common banner. Travis, faced with the chaos in the north, must navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries among the warlords, seeking to establish himself as a just and respected ruler. In the empire of Sun-Heaven, the rebel faction led by the nobles and generals succeeds in overthrowing Grand Vizier Ammon, but the damage has been done. The empire lies in ruins, its people exhausted and demoralized by the years of strife. As they attempt to rebuild, a power vacuum emerges, with various factions vying for control. Some, inspired by the Shadow's example, seek to create a more equitable society for the outcasts and mutants who have long been oppressed. Others cling to the old ways, desperate to restore the glory of the empire.